up to heaven to be judged by a supreme court at which angels bear witness to their deeds, good and bad, and 11 months of purgatory await. Superstition, from the Latin over plus stand. A presence stands over us, one whom we fear, or who might just bring us luck. Or perhaps, as in surveillance, that presence compounds security and fear. Cicero, that hoary old philosopher who, according to one of my schoolteachers, had intoned something about disease of the mind being more common and more pernicious than those of the body, had considered the word to be a derivation of superstitiosi, literally those who are left over, the survivors or descendants. It is they who must perform the funeral rites for their dead. It is they who need superstition. One of my superstitions as a performer of funeral rites seems to lie in a miniature bottle of shampoo, latterly found to bear the name Memory of Senses. Had I unwittingly taken in that name well before noticing it? None of my senses had been behaving particularly well in the 14 months and rising since he had died. My sight and hearing had all but abandoned the world. They were overrun, smothered by the assault from within. Maybe I had something in common with that other adult mourner, Hamlet, whose father's untimely death alongside his mother's way of grieving, curtailed too swiftly and sexually from his perspective as a son, sets up a fury in him that some term mad. He feels surveyed by the state, by his father's ghost, and most of all by his own watchful, overwrought self. 2. Death had come suddenly for John. It wasn't expected, not by any of us, even though he was undergoing an extreme new treatment, the details of which I can't seem to rehearse, even though he had been in treatment for the first time just a little over 2 years before, then again in the last year. Twice. We had carried on laughing and arguing and walking and watching too many thrillers on the telly, and life didn't feel as if it were ebbing in any more definitive a way than usual. There was plenty of black humor and blunt speaking about mortality, but somehow these were jokes and quite unrelated to the real. On top of it all, he looked fit, like himself. So when the real came, it was utterly unexpected, a shock, like a wall toppling, knocking you down into rubble. Things smelt strange there, rot and ash. When you raised your head, skewed hallucinative vistas opened. Part of the shock resided in the sheer corporeality of death. Nothing virtual there. The body turned to unresponding stone, massive, unforgiving, as it lay there on the raised bed in the intensive care unit. That unmoving body was more intractable than mere absence. It was stubbornly indomitable. It couldn't be wooed or bargained with or budged. Certainly not by me. Not over months of remembering. It was just there, a blunt fact. Somehow, it was also a reprimand. How had we let him die? We tend to think of dead bodies as abject in their lifelessness. I should have felt sorrow and pity. I had earlier, while he was still breathing. But now, perhaps it was fear or panic or guilt or all of them at once. His sheer stony immovability carried a visceral threat. Was it the latent violence of so much shiny steel and the high-tech tools that brought murder to my mind? The evening before, I had had a loud, panicking exchange with a bullying emergency room doctor who wanted to operate instantly. He just wouldn't listen when I said anyone from the cancer clinic would tell him that given John's non-existent immune system, he couldn't be operated on. I was quietened by another doctor, and in the end, when the detail on John's file was read, no operation took place. Had I been wrong? Was I complicit in the death? And did that mean, in the too many interpretations that accompany death, just as they accompany love, that I somehow wanted it? He had lain there for a whole night before turning into stone, a night that stretched into infinity and gave way too soon, while the machines around him blipped and danced with waves and reels of shining numbers.